Alpha of Ashes, the last flame by Aurora's Thales prologue. There's a kind of quiet that only follows great fire. Dawn crept over the ruined fields, pale and trembling. Where the blood moon had burned the sky red, only silver remained. Ash drifted like snow across the plains of the old war, settling over broken stone, still armor, and forgotten vows. At the heart of it stood Callum, the last alpha of the flame. His cloak hung heavy with soot, his hands blackened from the fire that no longer raged but hummed softly beneath his skin. He could feel her there. Selene, not gone, not truly, but everywhere, woven through the warmth of the wind, in the whisper of the embers when they sighed her name. He raised a hand toward the faint glow rising from the ashes. It pulsed once in answer. Then the wind changed, carrying a sound that was almost a voice. Do not grieve the fire, it remembers you. Callum closed his eyes, breathing her in. Every night since the battle, he dreamt of her not as a ghost, but as light breaking through darkness. Each dawn, the dream ended the same way, his hands reaching, her fingers dissolving into flame. Behind him, the rebuilt walls of the ashen keep rose slowly, stone by stone. The people called him the Flame King now. They knelt when he passed, whispered blessings to the fire. He said nothing. For all his power, the world felt hollow. That evening, he walked alone to the cliffs above the vale. The wind carried sparks from the pyres below, rising into the cold air like fireflies. The sea reflected the moon whole again, pale and watchful. If you can hear me, he whispered, show me. The silence answered first. Then a single flame bloomed in his palm, cool and white. Not his fire, hers. He stared at it, stunned. The flame flickered, forming faint shapes, soft curves, fingers, the trace of a face. For one heartbeat, he saw her eyes in it. Then it vanished. Callum sank to his knees, chest aching. The world was not done with them yet. He could feel it in his blood, the prophecy turning again, slow as dawn. Somewhere beyond the horizon, in the ruins of the temple where they first met, the moonfire stirred. A hand of light reached upward from the ashes, fingers pale, trembling, and alive. Chapter 1. Every fire leaves echoes. Some whisper, some sing. The harvest moon was days away, yet its silver light already touched everything, the fields, the walls, even the ashes that never cooled. It was in that soft, breath-held hour before dawn that Callum first felt it again. He had been walking the ramparts alone, as he always did when sleep refused him. The wind carried the scent of rain and cedar. Below, the soldiers were beginning their watch, the hum of morning quiet but alive. Then a flicker, a faint shimmer along the inner courtyard where the old moonfire altar had been rebuilt. At first he thought it was torchlight, but this was different, gentler, pulsing like a heartbeat. He descended the stairs and crossed the stones until he stood before it. There, sprouting through cracks in the marble, grew a flower of flame. Its petals glowed silver white, its stem translucent as glass. When he knelt beside it, it swayed toward him, as though greeting an old friend. He reached out, and the bloom's light flared, whispering in a voice he had not heard since that final night. Callum, he froze. The sound was soft, barely a breath, yet it struck through him like thunder. Selene, the flame trembled, its glow deepening. The voice came again, clearer this time, not words exactly, but emotion, sorrow, longing, warmth. He closed his eyes and saw her, not as she had died, but as she had lived, smiling beneath the moonlight, her hair a river of silver, her eyes full of endless dawns. "Find me," the whisper said. "Follow the flame." The flower's light spread across the stones, tracing symbols in an ancient pattern, the same runes carved in the temple of the first flame. A path, northeast, toward the mountains. Before Callum could move, a shout broke the stillness. "Your Majesty," he turned. Soldiers stood at the gate, a small child beside him, a girl no more than 10, cloaked in gray. The guard bowed deeply. "We found her outside the walls. She said she was sent by the moon." The girl lifted her face. Her eyes glowed faintly, silver, luminous. When she spoke, her voice was both young and impossibly old. "You heard her, didn't you? She called your name." Callum's breath caught. "Who are you?" She smiled, the way Selene once had. "A messenger. She cannot walk the world yet, but she sees through me." He knelt before her, searching those eyes for truth. "Where is she?" The girl lifted a trembling hand and pointed toward the distant peaks where dawn was breaking. "The heart of the mountain, where the first fire was born. But you must hurry, Flame King. The veil is thinning." "The veil between worlds," the child whispered. "Between life and what waits beyond. If she crosses before you reach her, she will not remember who you are." The words struck him harder than any blade. Callum rose, jaw set. "Prepare my horse. We leave within the hour." The girl bowed, moonlight rippling over her cloak. When she looked up again, her silver eyes shimmered with something like sadness. "She remembers the promise, Callum, but not the world it was made in." The flower of flame behind them flickered once, then folded in on itself, turning to dust. Its ashes rose on the wind, forming a trail of faint, glowing sparks leading north. Callum followed the light until it disappeared into the horizon, where love, death, and destiny waited to be reborn together. Chapter 2. The heart does not forget. It only learns new ways to ache. The road north wound like a scar across the land. Where the fields ended, the wild began, a silence thick with memory and ghosts. Callum rode through it with only the wind for company, the child seer following a few paces behind on a small gray mare. For 3 days they said little. The world itself seemed to listen. Each night, when the fires burned low, the girl would sit close to the embers, whispering to them in a tongue he did not know. Sometimes the flames would answer, flickering in soft, rhythmic pulses that felt like breath. On the 4th night, the stars vanished. A crimson haze settled over the mountains, and the air grew heavy. Callum woke to the scent of rain and smoke, and to a voice calling his name. He rose, sword drawn. "Selene." No answer, only the faint shimmer of light moving through the fog. He followed it up the ridge, heart pounding. There, atop a cliff of blackened stone, stood a figure. She was cloaked in moonlight, her back to him, her hair silver and weightless in the wind. "Selene," he whispered. The figure turned. For an instant, only an instant, it was her. Her eyes met his, and he felt the world tilt. Then her expression shifted, and the illusion fractured. face that looked back at him was older, colder, her features carved from flame. "You are not meant to be here, King of Ash," the apparition said. "The dead do not belong to the living." Callum's grip tightened on his blade. "Then tell me where she walks, and I'll follow her there." The phantom smiled, faintly sorrowful. "Even if it burns you, especially then." The wind rose, scattering the fog. When it cleared, the figure was gone, only a few embers drifting down where she had stood. He turned back toward camp. The girl was waiting, her eyes bright with silver light. "You saw her, didn't you?" He nodded once. "Or what's left of her?" "That was not Selene," the child said softly. "That was what's guarding her. The flame she left behind." He frowned. "Guarding her from what?" The girl's gaze turned north, where the horizon pulsed faintly with light. "From the Hollow King." "I thought I was the only one with that title," he said, half a bitter smile. "This one came before you," she whispered. "The first to burn, the last to kneel, the Alpha of the Void, the fire that forgot its light." The name struck a chord deep inside him, a tremor of old pain. "You mean the god who created the curse?" She nodded. "He is waking again, and he remembers your blood." By dawn, the wind had shifted. The path ahead was narrow, lined with cliffs that glowed faintly from within, as though the mountains themselves still smoldered with ancient fire. At the highest ridge, they found the ruins of a temple half buried in stone. Runes shimmered along the archway. Callum brushed the dust away and read the old tongue aloud. "Where the first flame fell, the last shall rise." The girl touched the runes, and the gate flared open in silver light. Beyond it, a vast cavern yawned, a cathedral of glass and fire, filled with the sound of a slow, beating heart. Callum took a breath. Every instinct told him to stop. Every part of him that still loved her told him to go. He stepped inside. The heat hit first, not painful, but deep, like stepping into sunlight after too long in shadow. The walls were alive with flame, whispering in Selene's voice. "You came for me." He reached out, and the fire coiled around his arm, tracing the shape of her hand against his. "I never stopped," he said. And somewhere in the heart of the cavern, something answered, a pulse of moonlight breaking through the fire, slow, steady, alive. Selene's heartbeat. The girl's voice echoed behind him. "She is waking, but the Hollow King knows. You must reach her before he does." Callum turned toward the light. "Then we run." Chapter 3. Love is the only fire that remembers what it was before it burned. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. Sound faded to a low hum, a living pulse that seemed to come from the stone itself. The walls of the cavern shimmered with slow waves of molten gold, veins of moonfire running through them like lifeblood. Callum led the way, the child close behind. Each step took him nearer to that familiar heartbeat, the rhythm that had once guided him through darkness. The flame within him flared brighter with every breath, answering to something unseen, something calling him home. "She's close," the girl whispered. He nodded. "I can feel her." Ahead, the tunnel widened into a vast hollow chamber. The ceiling arched high above like the inside of a celestial dome. At its center floated a sphere of light, soft, shifting, full of slow-moving embers that drifted like stars in water. Inside it, the faint outline of a woman's body shimmered, curled as though in sleep. Selene. Her hair flowed around her like strands of liquid silver, and her skin glowed with a light too pure for the mortal world. The air around her smelled of rain and warmth, and the faint sweetness of moonflowers. Callum took a step forward, and the chamber stirred. Flames along the walls roared to life, spiraling into towering forms that merged into a single shape. Tall, crowned with fire, eyes hollow and black. The Hollow King. You dare trespass in the sanctum of the first flame, the voice thundered, deep and hollow. The fire that remade you was mine before it ever touched her. Callum's blade slid free, its edge glowing white-hot in the reflected light. I came for her, not for your throne. You came for what is no longer yours, the Hollow King replied, his laughter like the cracking of the earth. She burns with my essence now. The moonfire and I are one. The child stepped between them, her small hands lifted. No, the flame was never yours, you stole it. The king turned his gaze on her. And what are you, little echo, a vessel? A shadow she left behind. The girl's eyes blazed silver. I am what she remembered. The ground split open. The sphere that held Selene began to tremble, the light within it flickering. Her eyes fluttered open for the first time, half-lidded, unfocused, but alive. Callum, she whispered. He surged forward, fire blazing from his hands. The Hollow King moved faster, his arms sweeping through the air and striking him back. The impact hurled Callum across the chamber. He hit the stone hard, the world spinning. Through the haze, he saw the child run toward the sphere. The Hollow King raised his arm again, but Callum was already on his feet, his fury snapping through every nerve. You will not touch her, the fire within him ignited, not red or gold, but pure white. It surged through his veins, his eyes, his sword, a living blaze of moonfire and flame intertwined. He swung. The strike met the king's fire with a sound like the universe tearing. Light filled the cavern, swallowing shadow. The Hollow King stumbled, cracks forming along his molten body. For the first time, he seemed uncertain. What are you? Callum's voice came low and steady. The last flame, hers and mine. He drove his blade through the king's chest. The body exploded in a storm of sparks and shadow that screamed as it died. When the light faded, only ashes remained, glowing faintly, then fading to nothing. The child fell to her knees, exhausted. The sphere of light that held Selene dimmed, then dissolved like mist. She fell gently into Callum's waiting arms. Her skin was warm. Her eyes, when they opened, were the same bright green he had seen 1,000 times in dreams. She reached up, touching his face with trembling fingers. I found you again, she whispered. He held her close, his voice breaking. You never left. The chamber quieted. The flames along the walls softened into a calm, golden glow. The child's voice drifted faintly through the silence. The curse is gone. The flame has chosen balance. Selene turned toward her, her expression gentle. Who are you? The girl smiled, and as she did, her form shimmered, dissolving into silver light. The part of you that remembered how to find him. She vanished, leaving only a trail of moonlight in the air. Selene looked up at Callum, tears bright in her eyes. It's over, he nodded slowly, forehead resting against hers. No more prophecies, no more fire, just us. The walls of the chamber began to change, the molten gold cooling into stone, the veins of moonfire settling into soft luminescence. A new dawn was rising beyond the mountain, and for the first time, it was quiet. "Let's go home," he said. Chapter 4. The end of darkness is never silent. It screams as it dies. The mountain trembled long after the Hollow King fell. From its veins, rivers of molten gold bled into the valleys below. The air shimmered with heat. Every tree and stone seemed to hum with restless fire. Callum and Selene stood in the heart of the collapsing temple, their hands still clasped, the light between them refusing to fade. Outside, the world was changing. The sky blazed red at the edges, and the horizon pulsed with stormlight. The soldiers in the plains saw it first, a wall of flame stretching from one end of the world to the other. "It's not over," Selene whispered, her gaze fixed on the glowing fissures that split the mountain floor. Callum felt it too. The fire that had once been the Hollow King was unraveling, its energy spilling into everything, into rivers, roots, air. The curse was dead, but its body refused to lie still. He turned to her. "If it spreads, the flame will devour the land. Then we contain it," she said, together. They stepped out into the dawn. The wind burned warm, heavy with ash and light. In the distance, the city of the Flame Keep glimmered like a memory, its towers catching the first rays of the rising sun. By midday, the fire reached the fields. Waves of heat rolled across the plain, and the sky darkened to copper. Selene raised her hands. Drawing the moonfire upward, beams of silver light fell like rain, slowing the spread. Callum called to the soldiers. "Form the ring, keep the line. The fire feeds on fear, stand firm." He could feel the rhythm of the flame in the ground beneath his boots. It pulsed to his heartbeat. Every strike of his blade cut through waves of molten air, sealing cracks before they could erupt. But for every wound they closed, two more opened. Selene's strength began to waver, her glow flickering. "It's not enough," she gasped. Callum caught her as she stumbled. "Don't you dare stop." She looked up, eyes bright with tears and light. "If we merge the fire again, it could consume us." He smiled, faint and fierce. "Then we'll burn together, just like always." He pressed his palm against hers. The flames between them roared to life, white and silver, curling upward into a single spiral that split the clouds. For one breathtaking moment, the world stood still. The fire recognized them. The moon and the flame, bound again, but no longer as curse and cure, as balance. Their power merged into a blinding radiance that rolled across the plains, not as destruction, but renewal. The burning trees sprouted leaves of gold. The cracked earth sealed itself, green and alive again. Even the ashes of the fallen shimmered with light, dissolving into tiny motes that drifted skyward like stars returning to their constellations. When the light finally dimmed, Callum and Selene stood at the center of the field, their hands still joined. The soldiers had fallen to their knees, heads bowed, faces wet with awe and tears. Selene turned her face toward the sky. The blood moon was gone. In its place hung a new light, pale gold at the core, rimmed with silver. Neither sun nor moon, but something born of both. Dawnfire, Callum murmured. Selene smiled faintly, her voice soft as wind. Our flame. He wrapped his arms around her, his voice rough with relief. We did it. She leaned her forehead against his. No, love, you did. He shook his head. No prophecy ever said one heart had to fall. We just needed both to rise. The wind carried the scent of rain and flowers through the new air. The horizon was green again. The world was whole. Far above, in the fatting clouds, the faint echo of a voice whispered through the light. When fire learns to love its reflection, even the gods bow to dawn. And for the first time in centuries, the flame was quiet, not gone, not sleeping, just at peace. Epilogue, all endings are simply beginnings, waiting for softer light. The world healed in silence. The fire no longer roared, it whispered. It danced gently across the meadows where ashes once fell, its warmth weaving through the roots of newborn trees. Seasons passed. The air grew calm, and the rivers ran clear again. The great keep, once blackened by smoke, now glowed faintly in the evening sun, its towers wreathed not in fire, but in silver vines that bloomed beneath the light of the dawnfire moon. Selene stood on the balcony of the restored citadel, the wind brushing her silver hair across her face. Below, the people gathered in the courtyard, not for war, but for celebration. Lanterns floated upward, thousands of them, carrying wishes and songs into the endless twilight sky. Callum joined her, his steps soft on the marble floor. He still wore the crown, but it no longer weighed like iron. It felt lighter, made of flame and faith. When he stood beside her, their hands found each other without thought. They call this the age of dawnfire, he murmured. Selene smiled, her gaze following the drifting lights. Do you remember what the Hollow King said? That we were never meant to survive the fire. Then he never understood what it was. She turned toward him. And what is it then? Callum's eyes softened. The fire was never meant to destroy. It was meant to remember. A soft laugh escaped her lips, carried away by the wind. The sound was a promise in itself, a melody that the world had long forgotten. Below them, a child ran through the crowd, a little girl with silver-flecked hair and a curious glow in her eyes. Selene watched her, warmth blooming in her chest. Do you think she remembers any of it? The seer, Callum asked. No, but I think she carries something of the flame's memory. And that's enough. The girl stopped and looked up toward the balcony. For a brief, impossible moment, the wind bent the lantern light, and her eyes caught it shining silver, just like before. Selene's breath caught. The child smiled. Then the crowd carried her away again, into laughter and music. When night deepened, Callum and Selene descended the steps to the quiet gardens behind the citadel. The air smelled of earth after rain. Fireflies drifted among the flowers, tiny sparks of moonfire still clinging to the world. They stopped beneath an archway of glowing vines. Callum reached into his cloak and drew out a ring of silver, its center shaped like a flame frozen in motion. I had this forged from the last spark of the Hollow King, he said, a reminder that even shadows can serve the light. Selene took the ring in her hand, eyes glistening. You never stop surprising me. I had centuries to practice, he said softly. She smiled, tears bright as glass. Then let this be our vow, not to the gods, not to destiny, to us. He nodded, voice low and reverent. To the fire that learned to love. They kissed beneath the pale shimmer of the new moon, their shadows merging into one. Above them, the dawnfire burned steady, neither day nor night, but both, forever entwined. The legend of the alpha and the flame would pass into whispers, into lullabies sung to children who never knew war. But somewhere, in every spark that ever dared to love, they would live on, a reminder that even from ashes, love can rise again. And the fire, at last, rested,